The psychoanalytical notion of the self is actually very poorly developed, so it depends very much on whose version you mean when you ask about the psychoanalytical notion. The Freudian notion of the self, the very few times that Freud uses the word, it seems to refer to ego, id, and superego combined. The three of them together become the self. And in that sense, it's not that different from the subject. In other words, it's just the mind. I do think that those three levels, the id, the ego, and the superego, have neural correlates, and I think that it also helps us to better understand the concept of the self. Those three correlates are, first of all, the upper brainstem and limbic arousal, affective arousal systems. This is just sentient presence. It's just affective being. This is a subjective state. It certainly is coming from the inside. It's mine, but I can't think about it. I just suffer it. That is the id level, the pleasure principle level. At the ego level, there's a representation. There's an image. Just as I see my own body and your body, they're both external to me. So that's the second. The ego level is it's an object, not a subjective state of affect, but rather a perceptual object, and Freud speaks of it as a bodily ego at that level, that you have a notion of a thing in the world called me which is representable, and at that point you start to have something quite different, a cognitive self, a thinkable self. At the level of the superego, what you have is a reflective capacity, a capacity to look back upon yourself. So it's not just a second person point of view, it's a thing. It's a third person point of view, the ability to abstract yourself from yourself and to see yourself from the outside, from the object's point of view. So it's an objectification of the ego. That's what the superego does. And I think that has to do not just with posterior cortical function. So the upper brainstem and limbic is the id level of affective presence. Then the cortical representational perceptual cortex and memory cortex representing things, a concrete me, which is the ego level. And then there's the prefrontal lobes, which is a reflective, an abstracted third-person perspective upon me and my thoughts and feelings. I think that that's a useful way of conceptualizing the self, and it incorporates the basic Freudian idea that the self unfolds over all three of those levels.